Hey guys, you are watching your anime world. How are you all? Please support to subscribe this channel for watching new interesting stories. So in this video, we will see second part, what if Deku unlocked his legendary family powers. Here is short summary. Izuku Midoriya was a child without a quirk in his first 10 years, however an event would awaken the powers he inherited from his paternal family, powers that were believed to be myths and legends, many decades ago. But before we start, if you want more stuff like this, then be sure to subscribe and like this video. And if possible, share this video with your friends. Now let's start the story. So, what are we doing on this beach? Izuku asked All Might curiously as they stood on Dagobah Beach, which was known for being a garbage dump. Well, we needed to find a place where you can train your body. All Might smiled as Izuku nodded. You said that one for all stored energy and that currently that energy could break my bones just by using it. All Might nodded, obviously knowing that the boy could heal from those injuries, but he wanted to be sure that the boy could use one for all. Fine, take off your shirt, All Might said. Izuku looked at him with an emotionless expression. All Might realized this and that what he said could be misinterpreted. I just want to see what your current physical build is, so I can get a better idea of what kind of training I can give you. The blonde hero said. Izuku understood and proceeded to take off his shirt. You have a physical build prepared for speed and mobility, but also for strength. All Might said as he looked at Izuku's chiseled torso, noticing 3 scars on his stomach. Did something happen to you here? It looks like you were stabbed. All Might asked. He knew what a scar from a wound would look like. He had seen many heroes with different types of scars and even himself. When I awakened my quirk, it was the same day that a man almost killed me. Izuku explained vaguely. He was not yet willing to tell him everything about vampires and the multiple mythological races that existed in the world. He had to tell his father about all that to know what he thought. I see, but you have a well-worked body. I could give you one for all now. However, I need an increase in your physical resistance and the durability of your muscles and bones, so that there is no problem that can occur. From what you told me, your quirk gives you a healing and regeneration factor. This makes it easier since your muscles will tear, but when they regenerate they will begin to improve and withstand hard work. All Might explained. Izuku however sighed. The problem is that I can't overcome the physical limit until I drink human blood. According to Dad, I'm not at the limit of my body improvement yet, but very soon I will reach it and I won't be able to overcome it until I drink human blood. Izuku explained. All Might nodded. They had told him about Izuku's quirk. It was surprising to him to know that the boy could become stronger by drinking human blood, but the boy didn't seem to have the confidence to do that. It's okay. There are still 10 months before the entrance exam to UA, so I can give you as much training as possible to train your body to one for all. Toshinori explained. Izuku nodded and the training began. All Might had designed a training program called American-Style Strengthening. The first thing he did was warm up and stretch for the first 2 hours of each day of his training, and after that start cleaning the beach that had too much trash. The goal was to pile up enough trash in one spot, and then take it somewhere else with a car that All Might had brought. However, there were several times that All Might jogged with Izuku carrying a bag full of very heavy trash, running for a long time before continuing with their training. It was a good thing that his body regenerated itself when he felt his muscles tear, and also his super strength and superhuman endurance. 7 months later. So you're still training like that? Hisashi Midoriya said, while his son dodged the knife attacks that both his father and Toga threw at him. Yes, Toshinori-san, he still wants my body to be in top condition. What his son said made Hisashi nod. Izuku had told him everything about One for All. It was a surprise that the strongest hero of all had a secret that big, although it worried him more knowing that his son would be in much more trouble than before. And how's your training going? Himiko asked him. While making a vertical cut, Izuku quickly stopped the cut with her leg hitting him on the wrist. However, he had to put his movement aside when his father threw one of his knives at him, causing Izuku to duck and then jump back to get away from both of them. Well, I don't want the power to go to your head. That quirk is powerful, but that doesn't mean you'll be invincible. Hisashi with practiced speed approached his son. Izuku only saw a blurry shape, however he managed to narrowly dodge his father's kick. although he didn't expect Toga to appear behind him and stab him with the knife, to then be sent flying by a powerful palm strike from his father. You need to prevent your enemy's movements, and even more when they outnumber you. Some will not have enough coordination to overcome you, but there will be many groups that will know how to attack as a team. You must analyze the situation, their powers, their pros and cons, and come up with a solid strategy. Hisashi said. Izuku got up, feeling the ribs in his chest return to their place, after the strong palm strike. Many villains joined together as a team to approach the heroes, and others join knowing that the other's quirk complements them. It's the same with vampires. The man said while from his mouth a stream of white-hot flames rushed towards Izuku. The green-haired man quickly dodged it and then ran towards his father. However, he had not anticipated that Toga would attack him with a kick. Izuku used his forearm to block the kick, however the kick quickly changed into a knife attack that Izuku only had to receive. The knife stabbed him in his shoulder at the point where the nerves were, leaving his right arm completely immobile. However, Izuku only needed his left arm to grab the hand that was holding the knife, and with a spin, he threw Toga away from him. Quickly Izuku pulled the dagger out of his shoulder, letting his healing abilities do the work as he ran towards his father, who prepared to launch another breath of fire. However, upon seeing the flaming sparks coming out of his father's mouth, Izuku threw the knife at breakneck speed. Hisashi didn't shoot it and chose to dodge the knife by moving his head to the side. But that was his mistake when Izuku with a burst of speed appeared next to his father and with a strong explosive force hit his father's cheek. The man smiled when his son again disappeared and appeared on top of him, preparing an axe kick that was quickly dodged. The kick hit the ground squarely, creating a considerable crater, but that was all Hisashi needed to hit his son again in the solar plexus. Izuku spat out saliva and blood as he was pushed away from Hisashi with great force until he crashed into a wall. I win again. The man smiled as blood came out of the corner of his mouth and he wiped it away. Damn, that hurt. Izuku said between short breaths. The blow was powerful and painful. Don't leave any openings. Anyone with 2 fingers on their head could see this and hit it to kill or incapacitate you. Izuku slowly stood up but quickly sat on the ground. Shit, your healing is really slow. Hisashi said. Well, I'm still not sure about drinking human blood. Izuku said as he laid down on the ground. I don't blame you, son. I know it will be difficult, but you must understand that a hybrid like you won't have the full extent of his capabilities if you don't get to drink human blood. Hisashi explained as he drank from a bag of blood. I'm not going to force you to do something you don't want to do, but you're holding back, and that could cost you not only your life, but the lives of the people you swore to protect. Hisashi approached his son with a bag of blood. It was from an animal. Izuku quickly drank it, feeling how his regeneration began to become faster the more blood he consumed. I know, but I'm not so sure yet. Izuku said. Hisashi nodded and smiled at him. Although I must admit that you are improving in your abilities, although they are already at the limit of your current state. Well, the training with All Might is paying off, he. Izuku laughed, making his father sit with him, and they watched as Toga approached them with her clothes dirty from the dirt and several scrapes. However, before Izuku could say a word, she pounced on him and bit his collarbone, drawing blood from it. You'll really misunderstand him one day, Himiko. Izuku said as his hands unconsciously positioned themselves on the blonde's waist, making her sit on his lap and continue beeping blood. Hisashi looked at this with a smile, and simply relaxed. There were only 3 months left for his son's UA entrance exam. Toga was not going to participate because she was not that enthusiastic about the idea of being a heroine. In exchange, she would begin her internship in Hisashi's organization as a rookie, to become a kind of hunter of dangerous people. You are more than ready to inherit One for All, young Midoriya. Toshinori stood in his skinny form, as he pulled out a strand of his hair before saying, "Eat it." Izuku and Toshinori stood in awkward silence on the freshly cleaned beach. I was imagining it totally different. Izuku said. All Might scratched his head in some embarrassment. It's just that you need some of my DNA to inherit One for All, he. Izuku sighed and grabbed the strand of hair before simply swallowing it. I don't feel anything. Izuku thought as he looked at his hands. Don't worry, young Midoriya, One for All is inherited, it just needs some time. The man explained, making Izuku nod. it was understandable, it could take a few hours or minutes for One for All to be completely inherited. The minutes passed and suddenly Izuku felt something in his body. He didn't know what it was, but he could feel how his body felt different, as if he was bathed with something he didn't know. Suddenly rays of an emerald green color came out of his body. His skin glowed slightly and his green eyes shone at the energy that quickly dissipated as it had emerged. All Might smiled at that. The transfer had been completely completed. One for All was with a new carrier, a carrier who had shown what a hero did and that somehow made the #1 hero proud. Right now, young Midoriya will only be able to use small sparks of fire, but the more he gets used to it, those small harmless sparks will become a great tide of flames that crystallizes the wills of those who came before, and now I will be withering away, although I will do what is necessary to raise him and strengthen those small embers. At some point possibly in the future I will not be with him, although I hope to be around long enough to see him become a much better hero than me. All Might smiled internally, however a feeling of sadness attached to that smile. How deep and sad the truth. All Might's smile grew wider. Now he had to train his successor, but he needed a well-equipped place for training. Some time later. Izuku never expected that training One for All would be one of the most complicated things in the world. The first time he used the quirk was the most painful day of his life, and that was already saying something. As All Might had said, One for All was a quirk that stored the strength of each user who had obtained it, and that strength added more and more until it became what it was currently. All Might had told him that he had used One for All without any problem. However, Izuku had to learn that he was not All Might and did not have his luck. Flashback. Izuku Midoriya stood on Dagobah Beach. It had been a day since he was given One for All and he was ready to test the quirk. All Might stood beside him saying how it felt to use the accumulation quirk for the first time. It's like a whoosh and then a plush. It wasn't a very specific way to explain the use, but he thought he could get somewhere with that slight explanation. The green-haired man began to concentrate and retracted his arm, forming a fist. Suddenly he felt something fill his arm and heard the sound of something charging, and with a smash shouted by himself the boy hit the air. All Might watched with great fascination the power of that blow. It raised sand and moved air like a super tornado of compressed air. When everything calmed down, All Might smiled and turned his gaze towards Izuku, only the smile quickly transformed into a look of horror at what he saw. The arm that had been filled with the energy of One for All was now completely destroyed. The skin had turned a red hue almost reaching purple. He could see how the blackened skin bulged with bones that exploded from not containing the super-powered quirk, and even more so when a bone protruded from the skin in all its splendor, cutting through the injured skin. Shit, was the simultaneous cry of All Might and Izuku. Only Izuku's was a cry of pain. The #1 hero quickly transformed into his muscular form and gently carried Izuku with him, and the hero flew out of the place at high speed, completely forgetting about the boy's healing factor during his fear. With his free arm he took a phone from his pocket and dialed an emergency number that he had had since his fateful injury. The phone made the dialing sound before someone picked up the phone to answer. "Toshi, are you out of medicine yet?" was the question of a voice coming out of the phone. "Recovery girl, I need a stretcher and a room now, it's an emergency," was the shout of All Might that increased his speed even more, creating a supersonic noise. "All right, I'll be outside the facility as soon as I can," the voice said, just as active and worried as All Might. Minutes passed and All Might had arrived at the UA facilities, in a place away from the main doors. When All Might fell, a group of people were present. "What's wrong, Toshinori?" a short old woman asked as she watched Toshinori carry a child in his arms. "I need your help, this boy is in bad shape," was the response of the symbol of peace. The recovery nurse saw the boy and was horrified at the sight of his completely destroyed arm. "Oh dear, leave him on the stretcher, I don't know if I can heal an arm that destroyed like that, Toshinori." The man left Izuku, who was still complaining in pain, on the stretcher, while the old woman gestured to a man to take him to the infirmary. "I know, I couldn't just take him somewhere else since he is." The vague response from the blonde made the old woman nod, knowing what he meant. "Come with me then. I don't really need help," Izuku said as he grimaced at the pain in his arm. "Kid, your arm is literally destroyed, like it exploded internally. You have a bone sticking out and several of them making bumps on the skin. This is not just a minor injury. Recovery girl said to the boy lying on the stretcher. I just need my backpack. Izuku said. All Might, who was in the room, nodded and took the green-haired boy's backpack. Opening it, he saw a bottle and then gave it to the boy. Hey kid, don't move, I need to diagnose your arm and I can't do it if. However, it fell on deaf ears as Izuku drank from the water, and noticed how the arm began to slowly heal. Both All Might and Recovery Girl watched and heard how Izuku's arm healed, how the bones clicked and how the color of the arm returned to a much healthier color. After several minutes the arm had completely restored. Izuku stopped drinking from the bottle and looked at his now healed arm. That really hurt. Izuku sighed at that. There was no more pain, only a weak numbness in his arm. Recovery Girl, being a doctor, began to do a normal procedure, squeezing and seeing if the bones were in their correct place. There were quirks of this type, but these were very rare to appear and there was always some kind of consequence. Your arm is completely healed, there is no sign of failure or a misplaced bone. Recovery Girl told Izuku, making him nod. Well, it's not the first time I've been injured to this level. Izuku smiled in embarrassment. The first time something like that happened to her was when her father literally broke her leg with a kick, causing the bone to come out and tear the skin completely. That day was when her mother showed why her father and Mitsuki feared women, and found a strange way to make a person feel pain. My healing regeneration factor, it's something amazing and a blessing for my body, said Izuku as he began to make some movements with his previously injured arm. Damn, if I have to hurt myself every time I use the quirk, then I'll have to find a way to ease the pain. Izuku said to himself. Toshinori, idiot, why didn't you tell me that the boy could heal on his own? The old woman began to rant to the number one hero. Well, I had no idea he had that level of healing. I knew he had a factor, but not this high of a level, said All Might with a bit of numbness when the doctor hit him in the shin with her staff. Recovery Girl sighed. She had to agree with the number one hero. Healing quirks were rare and they all have a limit to what they can heal. So he's your successor, right? The old woman said suddenly, making the blonde nod. Yes, but I didn't know this could happen. The recovery heroine sighed. So One for All is much more powerful than when you got it. The boy needs to control the quirk in a different way before it hurts him again. Everyone looked towards the door and saw the director of the Uenezu, walking and jumping towards a chair to sit down. Yes, I didn't think One for All would react that way with young Midoriya. All Might scratched his head in embarrassment. Well, I had calculated it. Your body has been used to the quirk for years, and giving such a powerful and of course overloaded quirk to a person could give him problems. The energy stored in the quirk is even greater than before, Toshinori-kun. So for the moment I need you to train here at the UA facilities. After all, we don't want unwanted eyes. The director said. It was lucky that the new heir had time to train. Are you sure? I could look for another place. Toshinori said, making the mouse bear's dog nod. Of course I'm sure, but it will be for a limited time and I need a second hand with the boy's training. Someone who knows more about One for All. All Might seemed to tremble slightly knowing who could help with the training. I need to make a call. The blonde said while hitting himself to dispel his stuttering and fear. End of flashback. It had been more than 2 weeks trying to control One for All, however each attempt was fruitless, even with the beatings given by Gran Torino, the former master of All Might. Right now he was in his room, sitting at his desk writing down anything that would help him with the control of One for All. He would almost complete 8 months and he would only have 2 months of training with One for All. Well, One for All is an accumulation and transmission quirk. One for All has passed through 8 carriers. According to All Might, the carriers did not always live like a normal person. Some had not even reached 50 years old when they died. However, that does not mean anything. The accumulation of years of experience with the quirk are there and that makes the quirk stronger. According to All Might, he obtained a weak but powerful version of One for All. He could easily use the full percentage of One for All in his arm without suffering the backlash that I am now suffering. I could calculate how old One for All was. My estimate is about 39 or 45 years since he obtained the quirk. This caused him to have enough time to get his body used to the increase in power of the quirk. However, now I am the one who was hurt by such a massive increase. Izuku muttered to himself as he wrote down everything important about the quirk. he had also researched All Might's previous feats, and noticed that in very few of these, the strength of that one was not on par with the current enormous strength of this one. According to All Might, he didn't have a quirk before One for All came to him. It seems strange to me that he can have a muscular form and his true appearance. According to All Might, this appearance began when his fatal battle ended, but still he had no explanation of how that could cause a transformation at least. Suddenly a small explosion resounded in the house. Toga-chan, I told you not to put so much energy into the sphere. He heard his mother's voice. What he knew was that Toga was making from scratch a kind of energy sword that the agency's hunters carried. I'm sorry Aunt Inko, I'll do it again. He heard Toga apologize. Better put 2 spherical tears, they will distribute the energy and there will not be an explosion suddenly. He heard his father's voice. This caused Izuku to have something on his mind. Distributing the energy into 2 sources would make it easier to charge the energy One for All. It's the same. What if instead of concentrating it all on one limb, I had it run through my entire body? Distributing it evenly would cause me to have more control and no longer have a burden on me, and I would also feel in advance the level of power that I feel with One for All. Izuku said as he got up from his seat and began to do the same procedure when One for All charged on his arm, but instead of concentrating it on one point, he would let the energy cover him all over his body. Then he felt the same sensation, only all over his body. It was as if aggressive water were wetting him, as if it weren't still and was simply moving from one side to the other trying to get out. Izuku quickly thought about lowering the percentage and felt how little by little he didn't feel as much of a burden. When he opened his eyes, Izuku noticed how arcs of emerald rays rushed from his body like the time he had inherited One for All. When he looked in his full body mirror he noticed that his green eyes shone as did his skin. The green highlights in his hair also shone slightly. I have to try this. With a thought, One for All stopped transmitting power. Izuku quickly put on his shoes and left his house, but not before telling his parents that he would be leaving for a while. Upon reaching the beach, Izuku began to write something in his notebook, then leave it on the ground next to his backpack. With a calming breath he began to activate One for All throughout his body. First, the test of how much I can move with One for All. Izuku thought as he began to feel the energy flow throughout his body. After that he felt like his body was hardly controllable. Well, I feel like my body can't move with 8%. I have to lower the percentage to 4%. After saying that, the green rays began to be less frequent, only having a slight glow on his body and feeling his body. Well, with 4% I can move my body, now I need to compare my strength with One for All and without it. And so began One for All's enhanced training. It was a surprise for All Might to learn that his successor found a way to control One for All. Gran Torino smiled at this and increased the training. It was lucky that the boy had a healing factor, or else he would have to give a lot of explanations to the boy's parents as to why their son always came home with bruises. So the months passed until the day the exam started. Izuku stood at the entrance of the UA, looking at the giant building with a smile and a trembling all over his body. He had seen it on many occasions, but it never stopped impressing him. It's time to take my first step to be a hero, Izuku whispered to himself with a smile before taking the first step, but luckily for the boy it was a bad one. Izuku tripped and began to fall. Shit, was the only thought before preparing himself for the pain. However, it never came and he noticed that he was no longer falling, he was only floating. Sorry for using my quirk without permission, but it would be bad luck if you shut up. Izuku turned his head and saw a girl. She was a girl with short brown hair that reached her shoulders, with 2 strands of hair framing her face. Her eyes were a light chocolate color, with perpetual blushes on her cheeks. She was wearing a brown coat for the cold, with a pink scarf. Izuku couldn't help but admire how pretty the girl was, and her smell was very similar to that of mochi. What's your name? She asked. Izuku quickly reacted before the girl noticed. I'm Izuku Midoriya, and yours? Izuku asked, already calming down from the surprise as he felt his body having weight again. I'm Ochako Uraraka, we better go inside before we're late, she said before running out of the place. Izuku stood still. Even if he had gained self-esteem, he still found it difficult to talk to girls, especially those he didn't know. With a sigh he calmed his nerves and began to walk towards the entrance of UA. He had a few minutes before the exam began and he didn't have to be late. Exam. The exam consisted of two phases. The first was the theoretical exam, while the second and most difficult was the practical exam. For Izuku Midoriya it was easy to answer the theoretical exam. Being a hero nerd, it also made him study a lot about the regulations and laws that heroes must handle in their career. It was something easy. Possibly I have made mistakes in a few, but even so I passed this exam. The green-haired man said to himself as he walked. He was heading to an auditorium where they would explain to the applicants what the practical exam consisted of. Welcome to my show today, everyone say hey. No one shouted or did anything, creating a rather awkward silence for the pro-hero, Present Mike. Wow, you're all excited. Well, I'll introduce you to the route and rules of this practical exam. Present Mike explained with a yes at the end, shouting it. However, no one made another noise, once again leaving the atmosphere uncomfortable. It's the hero Present Mike. I listened to your radio almost a week, this is great. Izuku thought, avoiding talking in the place, only having a repetitive movement in his leg due to his fanaticism and the nervousness of being here. Well, the practical exam consists of simulated battles that last 10 minutes. After the presentation, go to the battle center specified on your credential. Izuku looked at the card that had been given to him when entering UA, so they don't let you work with your friends. Bakugo spoke, looking at Izuku's card, causing him to look at Bakugo's card. You're right, our assignment numbers are consecutive, they sent us to different battle centers. Izuku said while looking at the blonde-haired man's assignment card. He however growled at him. What are you looking at, idiot? The blonde growled. Izuku however did not feel intimidated by him. Calm down, I'm just curious, don't growl like a dog. Izuku whispered. Bakugo simply looked at him angrily while growling louder, however he did nothing and simply turned away so as not to see him. He really is like a chihuahua, was Izuku's thought as he paid attention to Present Mike's introduction. In each battle center, there are 3 different types of villains, each with a corresponding number from 1 to 3. By defeating one, you will obtain the points that the villain has written on his body. The point of this is simple. Defeat the villains to add up their points. Obviously, non-heroic actions such as attacking other candidates can lead to immediate failure of the exam. However, before continuing with the explanation, someone raised their hand. I have a question. Present Mike nodded. All right, applicant 7111, tell me your question. The student nodded before continuing. You have referred to 3 villains, however in the pamphlet there are 4 villains. I hope this is not a printing error since UA is one of the great heroic schools and it would be a great shame for an institution of this level. The boy said, however, he pointed at Izuku with a serious look. And you, the curly-haired boy, have been mumbling throughout the entire presentation, this is annoying. Izuku pointed at himself, he had not realized that he had been mumbling. Sorry, I'm a little nervous, so this is new to me. Izuku apologized. Bakugo's look explained that Izuku had indeed been mumbling. Alright, applicant 7111. I'm going to explain what the 4th villain is. The 4th robot is worth 0 points, it's just a distraction or more specifically an obstacle, defeating it is pointless, so it's more advisable to avoid it completely. Izuku thought about this, it was strange that they would put something like that for an exam. In a way in physical tests there were obstacles, but this was an exam, something didn't fit in this, putting a robot with 0 points was not something normal. Thank you for clearing up my doubt, sorry for the inconvenience. The boy sat back down and after a grand farewell shouted by Present Mike, all the applicants went to their corresponding testing centers. Test Center B. This place is really huge, it's like a mini-city. Izuku said to himself. Then he noticed each exam participant, each with different characteristics. He was tempted to write everything down in his notebook, but he hadn't brought it and he didn't have time to carefully analyze each person's peculiarities. With a sigh he realized that the girl he met at the entrance was in the same battle center as him. Calm down Izuku, you must remain calm at all times. Izuku clenched his fists, not realizing that his nails had transformed into claws causing him to beep in pain. All the participants noticed how Izuku beeped in pain and saw the blood coming out of his palms. Did he just get hurt with his quirk? Well, it seems he can't handle it. It will be a piece of cake to leave him behind. Yeah, how pathetic really. Izuku heard the murmurs. After a few seconds, his palms stopped bleeding. He had lost focus. Then he heard footsteps approaching him. Hey, are you okay? Izuku turned around and saw the same boy who had scolded him for his murmurs. Huh, sure, it was just my mistake, Izuku said as he looked at his palms. Don't you want to go to a nurse? The man was genuinely concerned, something that Izuku appreciated. I'm fine, buddy, I'm just nervous, hee. Izuku laughed in embarrassment and showed his palms. The boy with glasses looked surprised at the lack of wounds. It's my quirk, it gives me a healing regeneration factor, hee. Izuku explained to the engine boy's worrying doubt, causing him to nod. I see. Good luck then and sorry for the inconvenience, he said, causing Izuku to shake his head. Don't worry, excuse me, I think I mumbled a lot during the presentation, Izuku said. The boy was surprised by this, but before continuing to speak everyone heard present Mike's voice enhanced by his quirk. All right applicants, it's time for the battle to the death. Present Mike's euphoric shout made everyone pay attention. The giant doors suddenly opened. Ready go, the man shouted, but no one moved. What are you waiting for? In the real life of a hero there are no countdowns. Everyone began to run, but Izuku stayed behind. With a breath he began to charge the energy of One for All and prepare the muscles of his body. There are many applicants. I need villain points before they run out. I will use 4% of One for All and surpass my physical limit with speed. With that thought, the place where Izuku had been quickly exploded into rubble at the starting force of the green-haired man. Everyone who had run and was in the lead only saw a green ray move in the middle of them. Even the boy with glasses was surprised when his race was interrupted by the super-fast ray and then he was hit by the shockwave that the hypersonic ray had created. Suddenly in a corner 2 1 and 3-point robots rushed towards Izuku. The green-haired boy knew he couldn't stop in time, so without further ado he let the One for All leave his body. The speed at which he was going was enough for him to finish off the 1-point robot with one punch. Then he grabbed the recently destroyed robot's arm with his hand and then threw it at the 3-point robot that exploded when it was hit by his partner's robotic arm. Izuku stopped a few steps away when he fell and counted the points. When the participants arrived, they saw Izuku holding his right arm that seemed broken and twisted in a non-human position. However, the arm quickly turned and positioned itself correctly where it should be, before being a snap that made everyone uncomfortable. I exceeded my speed. I have to refrain from hurting myself, Izuku said to himself, before the green rays of the quirk came out of his body again, and with a great jump he crashed into a wall, and then with this he pushed himself and jumped away from the participants who stayed there. Jury room. In this exam, we analyze people who have a knowledge of their abilities and how they can use them. A man's voice spoke calmly. Next to him were several people, including Nezu the director, Toshinori Yagi, are also known as All Might, and Shizo Shuzenji, also known as Recovery Girl. There are applicants who use their flashy quirks to attract the attention of these false villains, or some who use their gifts to destroy them completely, said the direct Nezu, seeing Katsuki use his explosions to attract the attention of several of the false villains and destroy them. That boy, a woman spoke, noticing the screen where it showed Izuku destroying a 3-point robot. His first 2 robots were totally destroyed. Also I noticed that his arm was broken. Nezu looked at Izuku's screen and smiled. He is Izuku Midoriya. His quirk is called Vampire. He has the abilities that a vampire has, like he needs to consume blood to feed properly. Also about 2 months ago he awakened a sub-quirk that enhances his already increased physical abilities. However, it seems that it causes him damage if he uses it to its full capacity, Nezu said. While reading a file, he obviously knew who the boy was and his connection to All Might. He also secretly smiled knowing who his father was. Consume blood, so you need to drink human blood? Another person asked. A man, more specifically this one was Sekijiro Khan, or better known by his hero name Vlad King. He is a very tall man, with a wide and muscular build, with slightly tanned skin, with some visible scars on his left cheek and the left side of his noticeably thick neck. He has short, pale gray hair that is pointed upwards, away from his face, with the only exception being a small lock of hair that hangs over the left side of his forehead. His eyes are very small and thin, and he has a wide mouth with two prominent lower canines, which appear even when his mouth is closed. His hero costume consists of a skin-tight dark red bodysuit with a very low U-shaped collar, exposing half of his pectoral muscles and lined with thick black Y-shaped trim, matching the ones on his shoulders. He wears white over-the-knee boots and thick bracers on his forearms, a thin wire snaking from one of two small protrusions on the left to the nape of his neck, and red gloves. Around his waist, he has a three-piece metal belt that dips down in the center, and he wears an orange mask over his eyes. Not exactly. He also drinks animal blood. If he doesn't drink it, he can go crazy and attack those close to him. However, drinking animal blood also completely limits his abilities. It seems that the boy has not yet drunk human blood. Nezu informed, making the hero of blood nod. Limit, a man said to himself, while paying more attention to the screen that showed the green-haired man. With Izuku. Well, with this last one it's already 72 points. Said Izuku as he jumped again with one for all on his legs and reached the top of a building. This works better than training. I was able to experience the power of one for all to a greater extent. Although I need to refrain from getting excited, I lose control of the percentage I want to have. Izuku said to himself as he sat on the roof. His healing was working for hours due to the torn muscles and of course the slight wounds on Izuku's body. Suddenly he heard someone hitting several robots. Izuku looked at the street and saw the same boy with glasses. While those kicks have to be very powerful, he boosts his speed with his engines and it seems that they have good resistance. I wonder how fast his engines can go. Izuku thought as he watched the boy run somewhere else. Well, my muscles have recovered, it's time to continue with this exam. Izuku said to himself as he watched a group of 4 robots climbing the building to reach him. With a deep breath, Izuku let himself fall from the roof, feeling the breeze of the air hitting him. The heroes who were watching the boy's action opened their eyes when the boy simply let himself fall. Izuku let his nails lengthen and turn into claws and then encouraged his fall by stabbing his nails into the wall of the building. When he reached the first robot that was 1 point, Izuku simply kicked the robot's arm and with his other hand he hit its chest going through it. With his super strength enhanced with one for all, he grabbed the first robot and threw it at another that had jumped to attack it from the right side. The clash between the two caused both to explode. Then he jumped towards another and with an axe kick he destroyed the third point, and the last one didn't have time to move as Izuku simply used it as a surfboard, falling gracefully to the ground even sliding with the robot on his legs and then kicked it causing it to fly away and crash into a wall. I won't do that again. Izuku shuddered. Obviously in his mind he had done this to look cool, but the fear he had during the fall he did not want to experience again. Touching his chest and his trembling body gave the indication of the fear he had. Jury room. The heroes saw this and were shocked. The boy literally slowed down his fall, destroying those robots. However, Nezu laughed when he noticed the fear at the end of his great ability. You've chosen an interesting successor, Toshinori. Nezu thought to himself. Foolish boy. Recovery girl said. The boy wanted to die. Well, after this great display of skill, now it's time for the real test. He spoke in a not-so-friendly tone, something that made the older ones in the room tremble with fear, and then Nezu pressed a red button. With Izuku. Well, why are there so many people here? Izuku asked as he saw several students and many destroyed robots. There he saw the boy with glasses and Ochako, although the brown-haired girl was trying to keep her lunch in her. However, before walking, the ground began to shake. Izuku's auditory senses picked up as if something was coming out of the ground and more when the nearby ground seemed to have cracks. The green-haired man saw the center of the chaos and noticed a gigantic hand grabbing one of the buildings. Then the special exam robot appeared. What the beep? It's too big and exaggerated. Izuku thought as the robot seemed to observe everyone with those red circles that seemed to be its eyes. Everyone reacted quickly and ran out of the place, away from the robot that wanted them dead. People show how they really act when an overwhelming threat is present. All Might thought as he saw the chaos caused by the large robot. Izuku was so shocked that he didn't even move from there. However, he turned around to escape when he heard a beep. Izuku turned back and saw Ochako, the girl who had saved him from tripping at the entrance. "It would be very bad luck if you fell, right?" Her voice echoed in Izuku's mind. Everything seemed to have gone slow. Izuku's eyes scanned the place and he saw many applicants running in slow motion and the debris falling from the buildings. If that robot continues on its way, other people will get hurt. Without him knowing it, One for All began to beat inside Izuku. Izuku quickly came up with a plan. The boy with glasses noticed that Izuku was not moving and stopped. However, when he saw the boy's gaze, he saw that he was staring at the girl who was trapped in the rubble. Emerald rays began to appear and collide with each other, creating a dull roar, and also something inside him made his blood begin to beat in his body. His arms and legs began to have some kind of red and black color. Without saying anything, and to the surprise of the speedster, Izuku disappeared and then was pushed by the force of the sonic boom that he had felt before. The boy, being accustomed to high speeds, could see how a high-speed green ray moved from one side to the other, hitting several giant rocks and then stopping next to the girl with brown hair. There is no merit in destroying the 0-point villain. Ochako noticed the appearance of Izuku at her side, and noticed how emerald rays surrounded him. However, the most distinctive were his arms. His skin had a dark red tone with something similar to scales. However, on his legs the green rays turned crimson red and then shot upwards, causing the dust and air to move abruptly. But you can create the opportunity and shine. The rays suddenly disappeared and swirled around Izuku's right arm that began to have a crimson glow, and a strange pattern of black lines were drawn on the arm, causing the sleeve of it to be destroyed. Squeeze your butt and scream from the bottom of your heart. The scream was completely silenced by the powerful and destructive punch to the head of the 0-pointer. The force was such that the head seemed to come out of the body and the robot's body had small explosions. That is, the most important quality of heroes, the power and soul of self-sacrifice. All Might smiled in his skinny form, looking at what his successor had done. Izuku, after several seconds in the air, realized where he was. However, he didn't have time to do anything when he began to fall. Damn, what should I do? Izuku said to himself as he fell. My legs and my arm are okay. Izuku was surprised by this. He didn't feel the stinging pain when he broke his arms. Did my body adapt? It's impossible for it to adapt in such a short time. Izuku noticed the red and hard skin on his arm. Was this skin hard? Impossible. The counterattack is not external, it's internal. Izuku thought. However, he shook his head when he realized he was about to hit the ground. It's not time to think about this, it's time to think about how not to get stuck to the ground. With an active thought, One for All in his body, the emerald rays became present. If I use 40%, I can create a kind of break that will prevent me from hitting the ground so hard. Izuku began to concentrate the percentage in his left arm, and with a quick punching movement, the created force of air caused the accelerated fall to stop suddenly and hit the ground with minimal force, only feeling how his back broke from the impact and also feeling how his arm broke slightly by using more percentage of One for All. Damn, that really hurts. Izuku said to himself as he lay on the ground, unable to feel his legs. Shit, if it weren't for my damn healing factor, I'd be incapacitated for the rest of my life. He felt his spine bones slowly readjust, making him able to move and feel his legs again. Suddenly, he felt his arm readjust and make abnormal clicking sounds. Using my healing factor too much makes my bloodlust stronger than before. Izuku thought as the blood hunger became present. Hey, are you okay? Uraraka's voice echoed. Izuku looked at her and noticed the limp in her leg. Yeah, don't come any closer, he exclaimed, causing the brunette to stop. Damn, her smell is even stronger. Izuku thought to himself. However, a bag of crimson liquid hit his face. You really have a death wish, don't you? Izuku heard Recovery Girl's voice. I'm sorry. Izuku quickly drank from the bag, causing him to calm down very quickly. Damn, it tastes good, Izuku said. The recovery heroine simply sighed and approached the brunette. Come dear, I'll heal you, she said as she kissed the back of Ochako's hand, and then a green aura surrounded her. Wow, my ankle doesn't hurt anymore, Uraraka said as she thanked the elderly doctor. I have to continue with the others who are hurt. Hey, did that kid really do that? Yeah, It seems he just wanted to show off. But I would lose points, right? Well, better for us. The murmurs of each examinee echoed in the engine possessor's ears. They don't understand, he destroyed the robot to save the girl. Then his thoughts went to the seconds before Izuku flew towards the 0 points. Even that, he saved others from being crushed by the falling debris. He remembered when the green-haired boy turned into an emerald beam and crashed back and forth destroying the large debris in his path. If this had been real life, then it would have clearly helped. His thought then clicked on something and his eyes widened. Wait, it's illogical that they would put something so big with a value of 0. But if this is a hero exam, that means... His eyes widened and he turned to see the green-haired boy who was sitting and talking to the brown-haired girl. Izuku was walking, leaving the UA with a serious expression. He had lost all his points for saving Uraraka, but he didn't dislike it. If it hadn't been for him, she would have ended up in a way he didn't want to think about. Then his thoughts turned to when he hit the 0-point fake villain. His skin became highly resistant, having a scaly and red appearance. He still wondered why his skin suddenly changed, and also how he had endured the full percentage of One for All. His arms had returned to normal during the fall. As he walked, he tried to think about more of it, but he had no idea why his skin hardened. Possibly it was related to his vampiric ability, but there was no blood on his arms and legs, and even if he had somehow hurt himself and his arms had become covered in blood, he would notice. And then there was the fact that he withstood 100% of the One for All without breaking it, something he wasn't aware of. Possibly his ability wasn't blood control, since the counterattack of the One for All would be internal, not external. His thoughts were interrupted when he heard quick footsteps approaching him. When he turned around, he saw Uraraka and the boy with glasses. Midoriya. The girl screamed an alarmed and distressed cry. Izuku stopped his path to wait for them. When they both arrived, the girl seemed to almost cry. "I'm sorry, I made you lose your points." Her eyes were almost about to shoot tears as she felt guilty. "Oh, don't worry, you really don't have to apologize," Izuku said, trying to calm the brown-haired girl who shook her head. "No, because of me you made you lose your points. I can't stay with a clear conscience, knowing that because of me you lost the chance to get into UA," she exclaimed. Izuku looked at her regretful and sad expression. With a gentle smile he placed his hand on Uraraka's head, making her stop shaking. "I don't blame you, and you don't have to blame yourself. It was my decision to save you. Besides, the soul of a hero is to save others by risking their life." Izuku smiled, making the girl look at him with a faint blush. "I don't think they'll fail you." The glasses man spoke suddenly, causing both of them to look at him. "This exam was a mock heroic test. If you risked your life and your points to save her, then I don't think they'll leave you out," he explained. Izuku nodded, knowing that. Suddenly his analytical thinking began to spin before the test, and he was surprised when understanding hit him. "Now I understand. This exam wasn't just about getting points by destroying robots. Possibly they also give points if you do something heroic, like for example risk your points to save another person," Izuku explained, causing both the glasses boy and Uraraka to think about it and nod. "So, you think you didn't lose any points?" she asked, a little distressed and worried. Izuku, however, smiled happily. "Yeah, I think so. After all, what kind of hero school would reject a person with the spirit of self-sacrifice?" Izuku smiled, then gripped his bag tighter. "Now I think you guys are hungry. This food's on me," he exclaimed. Both students couldn't say anything as they were dragged towards a barbecue stand. "Oh, by the way, I'm Iida Tenya." The one now called Iida said, making Izuku look at him and introduce himself as well. "I'm Izuku Midoriya. It's a pleasure to Iida." Izuku greeted the bespectacled boy as they entered the barbecue stand. "Hey, are you sure you want to invite us? Wouldn't you run out of money?" Ochako asked. Izuku looked at her and nodded. "Don't worry, this is from me. Besides, today is a special day since there is a buffet," Izuku explained, making both of them nod. But Iida didn't want Izuku to pay for everything. Izuku decided to ignore him and tell him that next time he would pay for theirs. The day passed with the trio eating and talking about what they were doing and all that. Izuku smiled. For the first time it felt good to meet new people, and his smile explained it. Now that he would possibly enter UA, he would make new friends, and that made him very excited to think about it. He had forgotten how it felt to talk to people, regardless of whether they were his parents, All Might, Gran Torino and Himiko. To be continued. I hope you enjoyed this story. Also remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.